Well, good evening, WNBA and LA Sparks fans, and welcome in to the LA Sparks 365 Network, your 24/7, 365 comprehensive home of the WNBA and your two-time WNBA champion, Los Angeles Sparks, coming your way, folks, here with day 2 of what was last year's 2013 and 2014 offseason, recapping the entire Sparks offseason in its entirety here on Sparks Watch 1 year later. Good evening, folks, alongside Chris Mancy via Apple's FaceTime from the Internet Studios up in Anaheim, California. Cal McClure joining you folks here from Studio 1 in San Diego. Chris, good evening, man. How's it going tonight?
Nothing much, just hanging here.
Again, folks, we apologize again for the tape-delayed coverage here. We know that you guys, that we think of you guys the most, but again, we are in the midst right now of a pretty severe technical problem with my laptop right now. That's why we cannot bring you, folks, the live shows right now. So we're bringing you the tape-delayed shows here at the bottom of each hour here on the network. So we're trying to get this problem resolved, folks. It shouldn't be too much longer, but it's going to drag on for a bit, but we'll get this worked out sometime very soon. Chris, it's a pretty significant day as we look back in the archive of Sparks Watch from last year on this very date, Chris, where two random guys that showed interest in a sport that has never been given, the respect it deserves by the average American sports fan basis, Chris. Two guys that basically, did a lot of people and did a professional sports to Chris a huge favor. But of course, Chris, before we can talk about tomorrow's event, man, we have to revisit today's events, folks. In case you're wondering, today is in fact 1 year since myself and Chris talked about, planned out, ironed out, and finally settled upon and finally said yes. Let's do a petition to have the fan bases heard. Now, Chris, obviously, we were sitting here last year, I want to say about this time last year. I think we were about 10 o'clock at night, 10:30, getting ready to close shoes and end FaceTime for the night to get some rest. And through the wonders of my thoughts, at least because I had a petition there for myself when I was in 5th grade that saved my elementary school from being closed down by the school district, Chris. Chris, again, this was my idea. This was fresh in my mind about this. But Chris, as you look back, man, we do a lot of shenanigans on FaceTime, whether it's, rip ourselves for no reason or make fun of you for no reason and just talk about sports and how life's going, man, and listen to me blast music over my computer. But Chris, when we were on that somber note last year, wondering, planning, thinking about a way to sort of let the fans heard, Chris, when I brought up that petition idea, Chris, what was your thought, though, about this going forward?
Right. All right. Yeah, great idea. Petition to let the fans voice hear about to keep the team in LA.
Chris, I think, man, that as we look back, I know that we just got on here about an hour ago once the Lakers finally won a game for the first time in God knows how long. But we got on here, and immediately, Chris, we both said, wow, it's been a year already since we had this major meeting. That again, Chris, normally, dude, as we know very well, Chris, that that we rip ourselves for no reason, we make fun of you for no reasons, or make fun of me for no reason on FaceTime. But Chris, this was probably one of the more serious, down to business, cut and dry, and grinding FaceTimes we had in 3 years or 4 years now since we've been friends, dude, since 2011, where we actually sat down and roadmapped this out. I know we had roadmapped out games to go to that fell through the cracks, whether it was my fault or people's faults that I know and that I'm connected with. But Chris, this was more something like the very first time we had like an actual serious-looking face-to-face meeting, I guess, because we know that we wanted so desperately, so badly to go to a game in 2014 or 2015, this past season, and again have the Sparks left or folded. That dream may not have become reality, Chris. More so just for that. But again, Chris, I said, though, man, that I had a different petition campaign when I was in 5th grade because, Chris, there was a big hullabaloo about my elementary school because of our enrollment, that the school district was going to close down my local elementary school because of our enrollment and ship us somewhere else. When Chris, myself and one of my friends from elementary school, I'm still in touch with Chris, we wrote a very scathing, long letter to the school district saying, look, please don't close this down. There's so much here for us to do. We don't accept and don't want you to kick us out of our neighborhood school. And Chris, to no avail, that one worked as well. So Chris, as you look back, man, I guess I know I probably should have, Chris. What was your initial thought again when I approached you about this petition idea, Chris? Again, man, knowing though about the credibility that the league does not get, the factors and hurdles that we wanted to talk about last time we couldn't know, Chris. I guess your thoughts, man, about. Okay, Chris, let me just ask you this. Did you think I was crazy and stupid, like I say that we are, though, about making it, but was I crazy and stupid in a way asking you about it because, as we know, man, about how much we're ridiculed across social media for watching the product? I guess, man, give us your, I guess, let it all out of you, man, your thoughts about, hearing that I wanted to do this for the Sparks of the WNBA.
All right. Yeah.
Come on, take the trash out.
Good.
Come on, kid.
Great idea.
Before Ken knows it.
And thought it'd be a get a lot of hate about the petition, no signatures, but we did it.
You have to say something to us.
Yeah, man, I know that it was heavy in my mind, though, dude, as we started this campaign late Saturday into Sunday morning as we did last year, man. In regards to, again, as we know, man, we have to take in consideration, again, the factors, the obstacles, the hate that we receive for watching the product, Chris, and unfortunately, man, unfortunately, soccer gets the same run of the stick. Hockey does, as does NASCAR. Other sports get it, Chris. But again, man, just that it was, it was my idea, Chris. But again, man, I'm leaving the credit to you because it was my idea, Chris. But again, man, you were the guy that took the idea and ran out your front door to take the garbage out of the trash can, like you did tomorrow. We'll get to that tomorrow, though. But again, Chris. I guess, Chris, I think that we both know and we knew the hurdles we would face. Again, Chris, it was getting the word out to people about what was going on with the situation. And also, Chris, as well, man, trying to get people to help out because, again, Chris, as you kind of open your eyeballs and, Chris, oh boy, here we go, we're going to have a WNBA petition, man, how big is this going to go, Chris? And it was a bit scary, I guess, to say the least, when we first kind of started, or Chris, after we said yes, let's do it, Chris, what was rolling through your head, though, as you sort of thought about this crazy idea that I sent to you about this petition, man? I mean, were you sort of wondering, oh, this is going to be a good idea? Do I tell them we shouldn't do it? Or what do you think, though, man? Or was there like that good angel and devil on your shoulders, Chris, about doing this thing at all, man? Was there that moment like, yeah, you want to do it at the same time, Chris? I think he's on his own here for this one. Or what do you think, though, man, about that?
All right.
I'm going to call you. What's this? Keep on
Yeah.
calling you and keep on calling you. You're not going to like
Let's do it. Let's see what it. It'll probably help keep the team in LA.
Chris, even I was skeptical. I mean, when this thing popped in my head, a year ago today, it was, it was maybe 80% go for it. Just try it. I mean, you're not going to go anywhere and you're going to be looked at, you're going to be frowned upon by a whole fan base if you don't try something. To at least try your best to keep the team in Los Angeles. Then, of course, Chris, there was my left shoulder, my non-writing hand that told me, you're an idiot. Don't do it. Save yourself the time and energy not to do this thing. But, Chris, I think, though, man, it was more so doing it, as we said last year, over the off-season, and to now, Chris, we still say, Chris, this was not for us. This was not for our benefit of going to a home game or trying to get famous, Chris. This was just doing something, Chris, that I wish everyone did, and that is giving equal opportunity to professional sports. Instead of hanging around the core four, MLB, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and MLS, give those other sports, Chris, that are always on the pond, doormats, you know, made fun of, Chris, give them a fighting chance. That's also, Chris, that's mainly why, though, man, I said we're going to do this thing. Because it's a sport, man, again, that I've played now for 11 years. But at the same time, though, man, it's sort of that way. Again, Chris, and also, man, what we still say, though, but again, Chris, how much more, man, can we say it? But again, man, I'll let you say it here. But again, Chris, this was not about us. Am I right or wrong?
You're not going to say it. I'm going to keep on calling you.
It wasn't about us, and that's all I can really say for it there on that side. But Chris, again, man, you know, it's. I know, man, that you and I ranted and raved and marveled for the entire off season during Sparks Watch on the Sports Lounge, on the phone, text messaging, you know, just playing around with scenarios about when the Sparks stayed. And also, Chris, I love it, though, man, too, man, something that you and I had, but also, Chris, the whole fan base had, Chris, something called PMA, Positive Minded Attitude, Chris. Chris, like we said, oh, man, it wasn't about if the Sparks stayed, Chris. It was always when the Sparks stayed, things would happen to us, Chris. What would you say, Chris, about the fan base, but Chris, us, well, Chris, the entire fan base having PMA, Chris, you know, positive attitude again. You know, it's not if the Sparks stay, Chris, but it's when the Sparks stay. I guess, man, you know, what would you say, though, about how tough upstairs the fan base was, Chris? I mean, you know, PMA, Chris, something that C.J. Wilson tweeted a lot. PMA means positive mind and attitude, Chris. Remember, man, how you and I always said, look, it's not if the Sparks stay, it's when the Sparks stay. You know, what do you say about how that mindset, that attitude and demeanor was that during that entire 35-day span, Chris, about how we were saying, look, it's not if, guys, but it's when the Sparks stay in Los Angeles. You don't thank us for what happened.
Agreed, just keep that attitude that the Sparks will stay in LA. And just matter of time.
It was a matter of time, and again, folks, tomorrow will be the day where we kind of go more in detail about the petition campaign. But Chris, I guess, man, we could probably shout him out regardless, man. I know that we want to see him for tomorrow, Chris, but I think, man, we just have to tell him right now as it is, Chris. Chris, as we know, man, there was a blooper during the off-season on your vlog channel when you were advertising one of our off-air hangouts with you, me, and Shorty Mamba 24, where you were in charge of your own camera and you were going ballistic about us two being in that hangout. And Chris, it was that day, or that saying where he said, yeah, there's Cal McClure, the guy, yeah, you know, ha 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 with the petition, don't thank him for anything. Chris, that's where we got that idea for the petition show. I mean, you know, it's been things like that that have happened. All right, so Chris, folks, will be right back. It looks like he stepped out for a brief moment. And like normal, folks, it's nothing new about Chris being bothered by security at his house, so we'll let Chris step out briefly and he'll come on back in. But again, folks, you know, there's a reason, though, or I should say here, folks, we kind of go a little bit towards tomorrow, but not a whole lot. But again, two people that sort of saved our bacon, you know, and also in that did their due diligence, and they did not have to do this at all, was what they didn't have to do was help us out, because we really were not expecting anyone to help us out with what had occurred with the petition. Again, we weren't expecting anyone to help us out, because again, we thought it was going to be a bust. You know, it was going to be, you know, a petition campaign that would go up there and flop. You know, it was not going to be appreciated by a fan base or whatnot. But again, two people though, and we'll talk more about them tomorrow. We may have them on, the folks tomorrow too. Shorty Mamba 24, who's one of our great best friends, loyal fans, and Trinisha Hardy, all the way over in South Carolina, folks, they both did their due diligence to help Chris and myself out for the petition campaign. A lot transpired over that time, and again, as you folks may know, Shorty was the first person that broke the news to me and Chris via our Twitter timelines when the Sparks ownership did leave. And again, when we again thought about the idea, folks, for the petition, again, we weren't necessarily wanting help from anybody. We were going to try our best to do it via our two-man show, our two-man crew. But again, Shorty stepped in to help, Trinisha Hardy stepped in to help, and they both did wonders. They took a lot of stress off me and Chris from being the only two guys helping out with the cause. They got their friends and family to sign it as well. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. But again, by the way, folks, Chris did step out briefly. Again, we had a bit of a problem there with security, again, as we know very well from our April 24th show of last year. But again, just kind of going back in detail a bit, folks, again, Chris and I, again, ironed out, planned out, figured out, and got all the details ironed out for the petition campaign on this date last year. It's been amazing to know, though, that it's been a year already. Again, we're about this time, Chris and I were thinking about if there was some sort of way for the fan base of the Sparks to tell the WNBA and let their voices be heard that, you know, we don't want our franchise to go under, and we don't want our franchise to leave our city. Again, and also, again, like we said through Stuttering Voices on Friday, reiterating that, folks, again, was you would probably expect a move like this to come from a team that had problems. You know, some of the teams that were struggling financially in some fashion, whether it was, you know, a team like Tulsa who's had so much has had problems, you know, or other teams that have had problems financially. I mean, you know, financial strain's been tough. But again, I don't think you would have gotten as much publicity, as much turnout, as much shocked fans, and as much news as you got with the Sparks problem. Again, when the Sparks left, it was front page of the LA Times. It was all over LA television and radio, and all over the news in the Los Angeles area because, again, it was an LA team that was going down in flames, but also, folks, it's the marquee member, you know, the marquee founding franchise of the WNBA that was in trouble. Again, if the Sparks had gone down, as we said on Friday, if they went down in flames, the whole league, in my view, would have followed suit because, again, you just can't afford to not have a professional leagues team in Los Angeles. Now, I know the NFL, folks, but the NFL is a whole nother argument and a whole nother story. But, I mean, it would not be the same to not have the Dodgers playing baseball, you know, the Kings in the NHL, the Lakers in the NBA, the Galaxy of MLS soccer, and, folks, it would not be the same without having the LA Sparks of the WNBA being around because so much has done, you know, so much good things, you know, great things have happened to LA sports in the past 50 years, you know, with the Galaxy winning their 5th MLS Cup this past summer, the Kings winning the Stanley Cup, their 2nd in 3 years. You know, there's a winning reputation. Again, there's also, folks, something called interest. You know, believe it or not, the Sparks have interest in Los Angeles. It may not show forth, but there's a fan base, there's interest, and there's dedicated, devoted, and loyal fans that show up to those games, whether you may believe it or not. If you're a non-WNBA viewer viewing our show tonight, again, there is interest, there's money, there's support for the Sparks up there in Los Angeles, and to see that team leave or demise just would leave your heart broken. I mean, if you live in LA and you were a devoted fan for the past 18, 19 years, you would feel it. I remember firsthand when the San Diego Gulls, who were a minor league hockey team for the Ducks, and the Avalanche went down. My whole childhood went up in flames because that team, other than the Sockers, was the only other team that won championships in San Diego. They won five titles across one pro league in the late 90s to the early 2000s. And that was my whole childhood in a nutshell, was going to hockey games and seeing a team in San Diego that has not had the best sports reputation win 5 championships. Or with the Sockers now, they've won 14, 10 and 11 years, and they won 4 straight coming back as an expansion team. So you know how I feel down here in San Diego as a sports fan. But it just I don't think would have felt the same for the W if they had 11 teams last year and they would not make that yearly trip to Staples Center to get to go to LA and see Los Angeles and those great fans show up there. And frankly, if any WNBA players are from California, like Diana Taurasi of Phoenix, or that came to college here in California, they would probably miss coming here because they know that they can go home for a bit, see family and friends, bring their family and friends, bring the family and friends out to a game at Staples Center. Where now, if the Sparks leave, you don't have that same luxury. All you're going to get as close to California as Phoenix or Seattle. You won't be going into Sacramento or into LA anytime soon if the Sparks did leave. But again, that's just how it was if it did go down in flames. But again, folks, we'll get to more of the petition effort tomorrow night. Tomorrow night was the first day where the petition took off and started going. It is tomorrow. But today, though, folks, was the foundation, the conversation, the ironing out, all the stuff, folks, all the behind-the-scenes crap that went on happened today. January 4th of 2013, or 2014, I should say. This is where the petition efforts began, was right here in my studio via FaceTime. But Chris is not here because of security problems right now. But again, this is where everything started for that amazing, amazing run over a 35-day span to keep the Los Angeles Sparks alive in Los Angeles and keep the WNBA alive to see their 19th birthday of this 2015 season. But again, folks, to reiterate, though, our problem here again, folks, I can show you folks, too, but again, my laptop charger is fried. My poor puppy dog, Rodney, you guys see him a few of my videos, you've seen a few of my videos on Calimac 94. He got a hold of the cord, brought the laptop down on it, and the cord broke in pieces. So again, we cannot stream events live on my desktop here because I have an outdated internet browser that does not support Google Plus Hangouts. So that is why we're having tape delayed coverage here for the next couple days for a while I do get this thing fixed, hopefully sometime soon. But again, folks, tonight was more so, the day that began what was the run of which began the petition campaign. Again, tonight, Chris and I sat down and had probably one of the more serious FaceTime conversations we've had in 4 years as being friends again, because normally we're goofballs, we're idiots, we're hooligans, being, boys will be boys, I guess, when they talk to each other. But that's what it was, though. It was, us two evaluating a subject, taking initiative, and running with it to go take up the garbage at our garbage can away from our house, like Chris is doing right now, folks. Again, it was two guys, loyal, devoted fans to a sports league and team that has and never will get the respect it deserves because it's got the letter W in front of it. But again, two guys that took an initiative of a crumpling, collapsing, deteriorating league and their marquee franchise, their rock, the mother franchise of the league, going down in flames. Two guys put together a petition campaign that they thought would get 5 flipping signatures. It would become the laughingstock, and the petition and themselves would become the laughingstock of American pro sports because two gentlemen tried to rescue a WNBA franchise. All of that nonsense happened today last year. And again, folks, Chris Mancy is out of studio right now, again, taking care of some business at his house. He should be back sometime before we close out. But again, folks, tomorrow night, we will again, folks, be talking about the petition itself. We'll be talking about the petition itself all night tomorrow night, and then on Tuesday, we talk about the Golden State Warriors getting involved for the first time. We have news for the Sparks about that happening. Again, folks, we will be closing up here in about 5 minutes. Again, the tape delayed broadcast coming up at the bottom of the hour here on LAS 365. But again, tonight, though, folks, again, more so, again, talking about, ironing out the details, folks, and again, what really happened, though, between us two, between myself and Chris, though, during that time where we were doing the petition. Again, folks, Chris and I sat here in studio for a good hour, I want to say, got the idea to do it, and again, took the initiative, and again, took that idea and ran rapids with it. But again, folks, that's what happened, again, with us two last year. And again, hopefully, Chris may not be able to join us again, folks, again tonight. Again, he was being harassed by security, as we all know. We know what happened last time, though, with security again. But again, folks, again, more so again, folks, just tonight, just talking about, why we did this, who did it, what was it, when it happened, where it happened, and why it happened. Also, but again, folks, though, it's important, though, to remember, again, ladies and gentlemen, again, that again, the petition effort was not made by Chris and I on this day last year for the sake of us two trying to go to a home game. I know that we've been talking about this nonstop for a whole year, but again, the petition effort was not for us two. And I know that if Chris was here with me, he'd be saying the same exact spiel. But again, folks, Chris and I, when we made this, we said, and I told him specifically, Chris, when the Sparks stay in LA, people don't need to thank us. We're doing this as an act of goodwill for them, but also doing this, though, in act of protest, though, about this franchise possibly leaving the WNBA. And Chris is like, I totally agree with you, dude. Again, this is not about us. We're doing it for the fans. And again, we're doing it, and again, folks, we did it for the fans because of the many hurdles, obstacles that the WNBA has to jump over and go through to simply get an average person in the, through the doors and into the arena to watch a game in an arena or on television somewhere. And again, but again, there were a few groups of people Chris and I were looking out for with this petition campaign. The Sparks fan base, they are one of the most devoted and loyal fan bases across the 12 teams. I'll say it this way, folks. The core 4, the original 4 teams, or technically the original 3 plus 1, LA, Phoenix, San Antonio, and New York, are the 4 most loyal fan bases because they've been here since day one. They've been here at the forefront, and they're all the mother franchises of the WNBA. So we did it for the Sparks fan base. We also did it, though, for the rest of the league, though. Again, folks, as you know us very well, this network is not just for the Sparks. We're here for them, yes, but also we love the other teams as well, folks. There's no grudges between us and the other teams. We've actually been mentioned by other teams on Twitter, believe it or not, from our network here. But again, the WNBA fan base also was on our watch list because of how much they knew what the Sparks leaving or folding would have done for their immediate futures. We did it also, folks, for future women's basketball players. The WNBA continues to be the first and longest running professional sports league for the aspiring female athlete. Not the NWSL, but the WNBA. They've been here for 19 years, and it is what it is, folks. You can rip it all you want. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. Simply because there's too much interest involved, and also if you do it, where in the world are you going to let the girls that want to play basketball play their games? Overseas, maybe, yeah, but they'd rather play, I'm sure they would rather play in the States. And again, also, for people that have younger daughters, newborns, teens, kids, teens to late adults, Any girl that has ever picked up a basketball and put her shoes on and gone out there on the floor, that's also who was on the watch list. Specifically, folks, my newborn niece. And also, folks, it was also there as well for a good friend of mine, or from one of my good BFFs on Twitter, folks. It was also a lookout, though, as well, for Meredith Wiggins, the cousin of my best friend on Twitter and Instagram, Candace Wiggins, who's playing local basketball here in San Diego. I'm seeing her play in a couple weeks against my alma mater. But it's people like Meredith who also were on our watch list, again, because here she is in high school wanting to be just like her cousin Candace. Go and play high school, go to a big-name college, and then go and get drafted to the WNBA. And again, folks, those are the people, though, that we were looking out for. But with that, folks, we have reached our deadline here. We will see you folks back here tomorrow night. But until tomorrow night, again, have a safe night. Drive home safely. Thank you all for coming, and good night now. This has been the LA Sparks 365 Network. We are the Sparks. We are still in LA, and we still are in the WNBA. See you folks back here tomorrow night. Again, tomorrow night, we begin talk about the petition efforts in its entirety tomorrow night back here from Studio 171 and the Ananar Studios up in Anaheim, California. See you folks back here tomorrow night. Have a safe night. See you folks tomorrow night. Bye-bye.